Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Today we're diving into the science section, and first up is, well, one of life's biggest mysteries. We're talking about that classic chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
How did RNA, which carries life's instructions, and proteins, which actually do the work, first team up?
Right, because today you need these incredibly complex things, ribosomes and protein enzymes, just to link amino acids to RNA.
Exactly. So how did that whole system even begin? It's been a real head-scratcher for scientists, but now there's a fascinating new piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, there's some really intriguing work coming out of University College London, just published in Nature.
Okay.
Researchers there have actually found that these simple molecules called aminosulfiles, basically amino acids already hooked up to a reactive sulfur bit, they can actually link amino acids to RNA without needing any enzymes.
Without enzymes. Wow.
Yeah. Think of amino acids like beads, right? RNA is the thread. Normally you need enzymes like expert hands to string those beads. But this study shows that under conditions like early Earth, with these specific molecules, the beads can sort of fasten themselves to the thread, just in plain water.
That sounds incredibly elegant, like self-assembly.
It is. It's a chemical solution that doesn't need the biological machinery we see today.
And what really jumps out, apparently, is how selective this chemistry is. Tom Shepard, one of the chemists involved, pointed out how, well, astonishing it is.
Right.
RNA isn't usually super reactive, especially in water, so the fact that it participates, even with more reactive stuff floating around, is pretty remarkable. It sounds like this chemistry is surprisingly robust, too, and precise across different amino acids.
Absolutely. And that's why it's more than just, clever lab work. It's a potential breakthrough that directly ties life's building blocks together under conditions that might have existed billions of years ago.
Right.
Matthew Pauner, who led the study, is really excited about digging into the origins of protein translation now. And Shepard made a good point. Previous research often looked at peptides or nucleotides separately, how they formed, but rarely how they might just, interact directly.
Without the middlemen, the enzymes.
Exactly. As Shepard put it, this shows them talking to each other.
The article also mentions this uncanny precision that the amino acids hooked onto the RNA ends in a way that actually mirrors how it happens in modern life.
Yeah, that's another striking detail.
And then there's this chemical switch idea. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So they found that these molecules exist in two forms. As thioesters, they favor attaching the amino acid to the RNA.
Okay. Step one.
Right. But then, when they convert into a related form, thioacids, the chemistry shifts, and it favors linking the amino acids together to form peptides.
Ah, so you get both steps needed for protein building, loading the RNA, and then linking the chain happening in the same pot, just by tweaking the chemical conditions slightly.
Precisely. It's like chemical choreography happening spontaneously.
That's brilliant. Where might these starting molecules, the aminosulfiles, have come from?
Well, the team explored that too. Their experiments suggest they could form from really simple precursors, things like nitriles and thiols.
Okay.
And interestingly, maybe even under frigid conditions, which could concentrate these ingredients. So it doesn't necessarily require some rare, exotic hot spring or something.
It could have happened in, say, ordinary ponds, or maybe frozen pools on early Earth.
That's the implication. It broadens the possibilities for where this crucial chemistry could have started. Of course, look, this is a starting point. The peptides they formed are short.
Right.
The next big challenge is figuring out how these could have been extended and maybe eventually how some kind of primitive coding system evolved.
But it fundamentally shifts our thinking, doesn't it? Maybe the origin of life didn't need complex machinery right away, just this surprisingly simple, self-organizing chemistry.
Exactly. It makes the emergence of life seem potentially a bit less improbable, maybe even more common than we used to think.
Okay. From the very small building blocks of life, let's zoom out now to a massive engineering project with huge implications for India's future. Really exciting news from Indian Railways. Their hydrogen-powered train, developed at the Integral Coach Factory in Chennai, has successfully passed all its tests.
That is big news.
Yeah. And it ties right into India's national green hydrogen mission, right? The goal is 5 million metric tons a year by 2030, aiming for net zero by 2070. This feels like a concrete step.
It absolutely is. And this isn't just a prototype sitting in a lab. It's apparently going to be running soon on an 89-kilometer route between Jind and Sonipat in Haryana.
Carrying passengers.
That's the plan. And the hydrogen for it will be produced right there in Jind. They have a 1 megawatt PEM that's polymer electrolyte membrane electrolyzer, making about 430 kilos of hydrogen a day.
Okay, so the basic idea is fuel cells on the train turn the hydrogen into electricity to run the motors. Simple enough principle. But how does the electrolyzer part actually work? Splitting water.
Exactly. An electrolyzer uses electricity to split water H2O into oxygen, O2, and then hydrogen ions, which are protons and electrons.
Right.
That polymer electrolyte membrane is key. It lets only the protons pass through, separating them from the oxygen. Then the protons and electrons recombine to form pure hydrogen gas, H2.
Got it. And the fuel cell does the reverse.
Essentially, yes. The fuel cell combines hydrogen from the tanks with oxygen from the air using a catalyst, and this reaction produces water and, crucially, generates an electrical current. That current powers the train.
Okay, so what's the critical difference between the two processes?
The key thing is the fuel cell reaction hydrogen combining with oxygen happens spontaneously. It releases energy. But the electrolyzer reaction splitting water needs energy put in. You have to supply electrical current.
Ah, and that's where the green part comes in, for it to be green hydrogen.
That electricity must come from renewable sources, solar, wind, hydro, whatever. Otherwise, if you're using coal-fired power to make hydrogen, you're just shifting the emissions problem.
Makes sense. So the big hurdle then is cost, especially for the catalysts used in these processes.
That's definitely a major focus of research. Right now, electrolyzers often rely on expensive metals like platinum or iridium as catalysts.
Right, not cheap.
No. So a lot of work is going into finding cheaper, more abundant alternatives, things like nickel, cobalt, iron. C&R Rao's group, for instance, developed electrodes using nickel compounds and graphite that apparently perform almost as well as platinum for splitting water.
Okay. So you combine cheaper catalysts with falling renewable energy costs.
And that's the path to making green hydrogen truly competitive. It could be a game changer for transport, industry, energy storage, really transformative potential.
Okay, let's shift gears now into our FAQ section. We've talked about big infrastructure. Now let's look at another critical investment, education, and specifically a subtle but important gender gap in India. Now, on the surface, India's made great strides. Girls are about 48% of the school population and actually have a slightly higher gross enrollment ratio in higher education.
Which is positive news, yeah.
But a recent national sample survey, the NSS report, uncovered something more, well, insidious. It's about how much families actually spend on educating their sons versus their daughters.
Yes, that NSS report, it covered over 52,000 households, and the findings are quite stark. Consistently, the per-student spending on girls is lower.
Across the board, school stages, rural, urban.
Pretty much. For instance, in rural areas, families spend about $1,373 or more on boys. That's an 18% difference. In urban areas, the gap's even wider, nearly $2,800 less spent on girls.
Wow.
And by the time you get to higher secondary, in urban areas, spending on boys is almost 30% higher. Even just looking at course fees nationally, there's a 21.5% gap in favor of boys.
So it points to a systemic bias, even if maybe unconscious sometimes, in how resources are allocated within families.
It certainly suggests a prioritization, yeah. And it goes beyond just fees.
How so?
Well, it seems to influence school choice, too. The report found almost 60% of girls attend free government schools, whereas more boys, around 34%, are enrolled in private, unaided schools, which are generally more expensive and often perceived as better quality.
And what about private tuition? That's a big part of education spending for many families.
Right. Interestingly, the overall enrollment in tuition is fairly similar for boys and girls, but the expenditure gap widens significantly in higher classes. By higher secondary, families are spending 22% more on tuition for their sons.
So investing more in that extra academic push for boys as they get older.
That seems to be the pattern. But it's also important to note this isn't uniform across India. There are significant state-level variations.
Okay. Like what?
Well, states like Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Punjab, they show big gaps in that government versus private school enrollment, with boys more likely to be in private schools. Gujarat has a particularly noticeable urban gap.
But not everywhere.
No. Tamil Nadu and Kerala show almost equal ratios. And some northeastern states actually send more girls to private schools than boys. So it reflects different regional, maybe cultural or economic factors.
That's important nuance. What about spending in higher secondary? Any interesting variations there?
Yes, it gets complex. States like Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal spend a lot more on boys at this stage.
Okay.
But then you have Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, and Kerala actually spending more on girls, particularly in urban areas.
More on girls, why might that be?
The suggestion is it could be related to concerns about safety, and the cost of transport for girls traveling longer distances for higher education, leading families to invest more to ensure access.
Right. Practical considerations shifting the balance sometimes. But those tuition gaps you mentioned earlier sound pretty extreme in some places.
They really are. Himachal Pradesh is a standout example. In higher secondary, the average spending on tuition was over 9,800 taels per boy, but just 1,550 per girl.
That's a huge difference.
Massive. And you see other significant gaps in states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu as well.
So what's the takeaway here? It's not just about enrollment numbers.
Exactly. The takeaway is that even with progress in access, these spending disparities reveal a deeper bias. They compound over time, affecting the quality of education received and ultimately future opportunities. It's a subtle but powerful factor shaping gender equity.
A really crucial issue. Okay, staying in the FAQ section, let's pivot to the economy and a major change in India's tax system.
Right, the GST reforms.
Yes, the GST Council's decision on September 3rd. They've cut rates on most items and simplified the structure. This whole rationalization process has been talked about for ages, right? Involved a group of ministers, government proposals.
It has been a long time coming. And then we had the Prime Minister's Deepavali gift announcement.
So what are the actual structural changes? It used to be quite complicated with multiple rates.
It was. We had 0%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, plus that compensation cess on certain goods. Now it's streamlined into main slabs, 0%, 5%, 18%, and a top rate of 40%.
And the compensation cess?
That's gone for most items. The tobacco cess is also said to be removed by the end of this calendar year once some specific loans related to it are repaid. So definitely simpler on the face of it.
And it seems like a lot of items saw rate cuts.
Oh, absolutely. The State Bank of India crunched the numbers. Out of 453 items where rates changed, 413 saw a cut. That's over 90%.
Mostly moving from?
Mostly from the 12% slab down to 5%. So affecting a lot of common products, things people buy regularly.
But some items went up.
A few did. About 40 items saw increases, with 17 moving from the old 28% rate up to the new 40% slab.
Okay, but interestingly, you mentioned luxury cars and SUVs might actually see a tax decrease. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. They were in the 28% slab, but also attracted a high compensation cess, making the total tax maybe 45–50%. Now, they moved to the 40% slab, but once the cess is gone, the effective rate could actually be lower.
Right. So why make these big changes now? What's the thinking behind it?
Well, there seem to be a couple of key drivers. Firstly, the legal cover for that GST compensation cess was ending this year anyway.
Oh.
Without adjusting the base rates, removing the cess would have made sin goods like tobacco suddenly much cheaper, which the government likely wanted to avoid. So restructuring the rates addresses that.
Makes sense. And the second reason?
The second, although it's been officially denied, is likely a strategic economic move. There's concern about the potential impact of those 50% U.S. tariffs on Indian imports.
You're right.
Even though Q1 growth was strong, the government hasn't changed its full-year GDP forecast. That suggests they might be expecting a slowdown later in the year. These GST cuts could be intended to stimulate demand and offset some of that potential impact.
A preemptive boost, perhaps.
Yeah.
So who are the winners here? Which sectors are welcoming this?
Quite a few. Healthcare gets a boost with medical products dropping from 12% to 5%. That's good news for patients.
Definitely.
Renewable energy components also go down to 5%, which supports the green transition. Consumer appliance makers are optimistic about increased sales. Real estate should benefit too, with cement dropping significantly from 28% to 18%. And auto manufacturers are happy about cars and non-luxury bikes moving down from 28% to 18%.
So broad positive reactions in those areas. But surely, with changes this big, there must be some sectors that aren't so happy or have concerns.
Oh, absolutely. It's not universal praise.
Yeah.
The textile industry, for example. While they like cuts on fibers, they're disappointed about the 18% duty remaining on garments over $2,500. They argue it makes things like woolens and traditional wear more expensive.
Okay. Who else?
Auto dealers are a bit worried. They fear consumers might delay buying cars until the new lower rates kick in on September 22nd. They also want clarity on how the cess applies to vehicles they already have in stock.
Logistical headaches.
Yeah. The insurance sector is mixed. Personal life and health insurance remain exempt, which is good, but they're losing input tax credits, which could actually increase their operational costs. Airlines are concerned about higher GST on non-economy seats. Vegetable oil producers still have this issue with the inverted duty structure, paying higher tax on inputs than finished goods, which wasn't resolved.
That squeezes margins.
Exactly. And MSMEs, the small and medium businesses, are worried because some labor charges have moved from 12% up to 18%, increasing their costs.
So a real mixed bag of impacts. What about the government's finances? There seems to be a big difference in estimates of the revenue hit.
There is. The center estimates about 48,000 crore impact, while SBI's research team thinks it's much smaller, maybe 3,700 crore.
That's a huge discrepancy.
It is. But a key political point is that some opposition-ruled states wanted a new cess levied on items in that top 40% slab to compensate them for potential revenue losses.
And the council didn't agree.
No, that wasn't accepted. So those states now need to find their own ways to make up any shortfall.
So it really underscores the complexity, doesn't it? Tax reform is always a balancing act, trying to boost the economy, simplify things, but also managing the fiscal impact and the political implications for center-state relations.
Precisely. It's a major shift with ripples across the entire economy.
Okay, still in the FAQ section, let's shift to foreign policy. This past week felt a bit like, well, whiplash watching India's moves on the global stage.
It was certainly eventful.
We started with Prime Minister Modi seemingly quite friendly with China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin.
Right, the SEO summit.
And then almost immediately after, a much more conciliatory tone towards U.S. President Donald Trump. It felt like a very quick pivot.
The sequence was definitely striking. You had the SEO summit on September 1st, a 10-nation grouping. Leaders like Xi were talking about a global governance initiative. Modi about civilizational dialogue.
Both sounding a bit counter-West.
There were elements of that, yes. And the official SKO declaration criticized coercive, unilateral economic measures, which seemed like a clear reference to U.S. tariffs and maybe European sanctions.
And then there was that photo op, the three leaders, Modi, Xi, Putin, and the Modi-Xi bilateral meeting.
Exactly. That was their first proper sit-down since the Galwan clashes back in 2020. They apparently agreed to work towards normalizing ties and have their special representatives discuss the border issues.
So how did the U.S. react to all this? The Tianjin Troika images must have raised eyebrows.
They certainly did. It was widely interpreted in Washington as, well, a challenge to the Western-led order. Some commentary even suggested India had switched sides.
Right. I saw Trump's social media posts and comments from his trade advisor, Peter Navarro, even mentioning Modi's war regarding Ukraine, which India rejected strongly.
Yes, the rhetoric was quite sharp initially, and India also participating in that BRICS online summit discussing tariffs probably didn't help ease U.S. concerns at that moment.
But then almost as quickly, things seemed to change again.
Exactly. You had Trump suddenly talking about a special relationship with India, saying he and PM Modi were great friends.
And Modi responded positively to that.
Yes, saying he shared Trump's positive assessment. It was a very rapid shift back towards warmer language, especially from the U.S. side.
So what do we make of all this, these quick shifts back and forth? Is India genuinely changing its alignment, or is there something else going on?
Well, look, many analysts would argue this is actually quite consistent with India's long-standing policy of strategic autonomy.
Meaning playing all sides, or balancing.
Balancing, yes. Not aligning too closely with any single bloc. The SKO visit, for example, was seen by many as a necessary step to try and normalize the relationship with China, building on earlier, lower-level interactions. The Modi-Xi-Putin chat was maybe more about signaling than substance, though the potential for formal talks is significant.
But the tensions with the U.S. are real, aren't they? Visas, trade disputes, India buying Russian oil, the tariffs.
Oh, absolutely. Those issues haven't gone away. But crucially, official exchanges, military exercises, high-level visits, those have continued between India and the U.S., despite the friction.
Right. Like External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is heading to the U.S. for the UN General Assembly soon, and there will be talks then.
Exactly. And the Quad Summit with the U.S., Japan, and Australia is still scheduled to happen later this year, with President Trump expected to visit India for it.
So the argument is, don't read too much into one summit or one photo op. India is trying to navigate a complex world by keeping lines open with multiple major powers.
That's the essence of strategic autonomy. It's about pursuing India's own national interests, which often means engaging with countries that might be rivals with each other. It's less about switching sides and more about maintaining flexibility and balance in a multipolar world.
A complex dance on the world stage. Okay, let's move to our profile section now. We're focusing on a tiny island that causes a surprising amount of political heat. Katchatheevu.
Ah, yes, the island in the Palk Strait.
Exactly. It's uninhabited, pretty barren actually, but it keeps popping up as a political issue in India, even though its sovereignty was settled with Sri Lanka, what, 50 years ago?
That's right, half a century ago.
And Sri Lankan President Dissanayaka's recent visit there on September 1st just brought it all back into focus. Why is this still such a flashpoint?
Well, let's look at the history first. Claims went back and forth between the old Madras presidency and Ceylon, starting in the 1920s.
Okay.
But it was formally settled through two agreements between India and Sri Lanka in 1974 and 1976. These agreements drew the International Maritime Boundary Line, the IMBL,
And Katchatheevu ended up
on Sri Lankan side of the line,
Yeah.
firmly. In return, India got sovereign rights over a resource-rich area called the Waj Bank.
And the island itself, what's it actually like?
It's tiny, just over a square kilometer. It's barren, no drinking water, no sanitation. The only real structure is a small Catholic shrine, St. Anthony's, which fishermen from both countries use for an annual festival.
So legally settled, geographically insignificant,
Yeah.
yet politically potent in India. Why?
There's definitely a political calculation, as you say. Politicians in Tamil Nadu, and even at the national level, you mentioned actor-politician Vijay, PM Modi, S. Jaishankar, parties like DMK, AIA-DMK, they periodically bring it up.
Especially around election time.
Often, yes. They promise to retrieve Katchatheevu, framing it as the solution to the problems faced by Tamil Nadu fishermen who get arrested by Sri Lanka. There are accusations, particularly against the Congress and DNK, of having callously given away the island.
But what's the actual legal and diplomatic reality? Can India just retrieve it?
Well, the Union government itself told the Supreme Court back in 2013 and 2014 that getting Katchatheevu back is basically a far-fetched ask. They even said it might mean going to war.
Because no Indian territory was actually ceded. It was undemarcated territory that was then divided by treaty.
Exactly. The government's stance is that the boundary was settled definitively. So the legal basis for retrieval is non-existent.
So if Katchatheevu isn't the real issue for the fishermen, what is?
The core problem is the dwindling fish stocks in the Pak Strait, combined with the fishing methods used by many Tamil Nadu fishermen, specifically bottom trawling.
This is controversial, right?
Highly. It's banned in Sri Lanka because it's incredibly destructive. It scrapes the seabed, destroys marine habitats, and catches everything indiscriminately, including juvenile fish. This severely impacts the livelihoods of Sri Lankan Tamil fishermen, especially in the north, who are still recovering from their civil war.
And India has acknowledged this issue.
Yes. Back in 2016, during ministerial talks, India agreed to help phase out bottom trawling and support Tamil Nadu fishermen in transitioning into other methods.
But it hasn't happened.
The practice largely continues, leading to ongoing arrests and conflict when Indian trawlers cross the maritime boundary line.
So Katchatheevu becomes a convenient distraction.
It appears so. Policymakers, politicians, they know the island itself offers no real solution to this complex fisheries conflict. But invoking it allows them to sidestep the much harder conversation about unsustainable fishing practices and the need for difficult changes within a key voter base.
It's using a historical symbol to avoid tackling a present-day ecological and economic crisis.
That's a good way to put it. It highlights how easily nationalistic sentiment around territory can obscure the real complex issues at play.
Fascinating and frustrating. Okay, let's move into the magazine section now and onto a much brighter stage, the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF.
TIFF's 50th anniversary this year.
Exactly, and it's a huge year for India, South Asia, and the diaspora. A record 17 films, including a series, have been selected. TIFF is really seen as this major global platform, isn't it? A gateway to the Oscars, global recognition.
Oh, absolutely. TIFF is incredibly important. It essentially kicks off the main award season every year. And crucially, it's a key entry point into the lucrative North American market.
We've seen its impact recently, haven't we?
Definitely. Look at Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light. It went from Cannes to TIFF, and then boom, 2 Golden Globe nominations.
Right.
S.S. Rajamouli's RRR, he did a Visionaries interview at TIFF as part of that huge global push, which led to the Oscar and Golden Globe for the song Natu Natu.
And Kiran Rao's La Pata Ladies.
Premiered at TIFF last year, and then became India's official Oscar entry. So yeah, TIFF premieres can be really significant launchpads.
And the trend is upwards, more Indian and South Asian films getting selected.
Seems so. The article notes 11 films in 2024, 14 last year, and now 17 this year. That includes 8 from India itself, 4 other South Asian films, and 5 from the diaspora.
Out of how many submissions total?
Over 8,000 globally. So getting selected is a huge achievement. It shows a growing recognition of the quality and diversity coming from the region.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about some specific Indian films showing this year.
Okay. Well, there's Huma Qureshi's film, Bayan, premiering in the Discovery section. She plays a policewoman looking into cult abuse. She called getting into TIFF a dream and validation, especially for stories that take risks.
Sounds intense. What else?
Anuruddha Kashyap is back with Monkey in a Cage, or Bandar. It stars Bobby Deol, and Kashyap described it as a different take on the Me Too movement.
Interesting. Bobby Deol is having quite a resurgence.
He is, and Kashyap apparently worked with him without a script, asking him to be emotionally naked. Sounds like powerful stuff is expected there.
Definitely one to watch. Any others?
There's Jutank Singh Gujar's In Search of the Sky.
Brumukakte.
It's about a lower-income family and their mentally challenged son's journey to the Mahakumbh Mela. Gujar talked about the challenge and authenticity of actually shooting amidst that massive pilgrimage.
Wow, filming at the Kumbh Mela must have been incredible. And isn't there an Indian series at TIFF for the first time?
Yes, that's a big deal. It's Gandhi, co-created by Hansal Mehta and Samir Nair, based on Ramachandra Guha's biographies. It's described as a lavish period series.
Hansal Mehta, known for quality work.
Exactly. He called it his most ambitious project. And Samir Nair from Applause Entertainment mentioned the risk they made this huge series without having a streaming platform lined up beforehand.
That's bold, betting on the quality.
It signals real confidence. And the producer of Bayan, Sheila Dikyabora, has high hopes too.
Right.
He apparently wants it to be India's this year's Parasite.
Aiming high, pushing Indian cinema into the global mainstream.
That's the ambition. And it's not just India. There are notable films from Pakistan, like Seem Abdul's Ghost School and Sanazar Jaffrey's Permanent Guest, and from Bangladesh, Adnan Al-Rajaz Ali.
Plus big names from the diaspora.
Right. Riz Ahmed's Hamlet reimagining, which he's apparently been working on for 13 years. And Aziz Ansari's directorial debut, Good Fortune, starring Keanu Reeves. So a really strong showing overall.
So TIFF is one of the big 5 festivals, alongside Cannes, Berlin, Venice, Sundance. What makes it unique?
Well, a key difference is that TIFF is known for being one of the most accessible, most public-facing festivals. It draws huge audiences.
Right, not just industry folks.
Exactly. And it manages to balance big potential blockbusters and commercial films with independent art house cinema. That combination, plus its timing right at the start of awards season, makes it a crucial gateway, especially for the North American market and the whole Oscar journey.
And it has a track record for predicting Oscar success.
It really does. Going way back. Chariots of Fire in '81, Life is Beautiful in '98, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000, more recently American Fiction last year, all got a major boost at TIFF.
And we already mentioned the Indian films that premiered there and became Oscar entries.
Right. Village Rock Stars, Jallikattu, La Pata Ladies, even Shekhar Kapoor's Elizabeth. The Golden Age premiered there, shows a clear pathway.
Filmmaker Shonali Bose, who's had films like Margarita with a Straw and The Sky is Pink at TIFF, called the festival a huge supporter and friend.
Yeah, she highlighted that it's not just about the screenings. TIFF provides networking, support, talent development, like its director's lab.
Which featured Kunjila Masilamani's Guptam this year, and Saurabh Hura's Disappeared is also showing.
So it's nurturing talent, too. And beyond the new films, they're also showing classics this year, a restored Satyajit Ray film, a Ranveer Din Ratri, and even the 1975 blockbuster Sholay.
Wow, Sholay at TIFF, that's amazing.
It really showcases the diversity. So TIFF this year feels like a real celebration of cinema, past and present, with Indian and South Asian voices playing a bigger, more vibrant role than ever. It challenges us to think about how these stories, from all corners, shape our view of the world.
A fantastic showcase. Now, let's turn to another profile, a very different but equally compelling story. It's about Pisan Raya Perumal. He's a 43-year-old professor in Tamil Nadu, also a folk artist from the Arintha Thayar community, which is a scheduled caste, and he's now fighting a tough legal battle after being removed from his university job.
His background story is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It really is. He had to drop out of school at 13, joined his father's folk theater group, Raja Rani Atam.
Which is a dying art form itself, right?
Eh.
Performed by men from his community, often facing hardship and harassment.
Exactly. But he described this intense desire or rage to study after feeling embarrassed at a funeral. That pushed him to go back to school, juggling performing with academics.
And he eventually got his PhD.
Yes, in art history in 2013, the first person in his family lineage to do so. An incredible achievement given the circumstances.
Absolutely. And that led to the university job.
Right. In 2016, he was appointed assistant professor at Manamaniam Sundornar University through the specific SCA quota for Othathiars. He said it brought him stability, a sense of belonging. He even felt his stage experience helped him gain confidence as a teacher.
So he'd really overcome so much to reach that point. Must have felt like validation.
Completely. But then things took a sharp turn.
What happened?
After 8 years, just when he was apparently up for promotion, rumors started swirling. Then, on March 13th this year, he got an official letter removing him from his post.
Just like that. No discussion.
Apparently not. No chance to present his side, even though his certificates had been verified years earlier when he was hired.
And the reason given?
The article doesn't specify the university's official reasons cited in the letter, but implies it was questioning his qualifications retroactively. However, the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court has since ruled in his favor, ordering his reinstatement.
But the university is appealing. Yes, the registrar wouldn't comment to the newspaper and indicated they plan to appeal the High Court's decision.
So he's in limbo. What's the impact on him personally?
It's devastating. He's struggling financially, relying on his siblings for support, and he talks about this deep fear of facing prejudice even if he does get reinstated.
And he links it directly to his caste.
He asked that very direct question. Would they have done this to me if I wasn't a Dalit? He calls it modern-day casteism. It really highlights the vulnerability that can persist even after achieving educational success.
It's heartbreaking. What's he doing now?
For survival, he's gone back to performing Raja Raniyatam. He respects the art form, he says, but questions if this is really growth after earning a PhD in teaching for 8 years.
A difficult position. Does he have hope?
He expresses faith in the judiciary and is grateful for pro bono legal help he's receiving. But his story is a powerful reminder of the systemic battles that individuals from marginalized communities can face, even within supposedly meritocratic institutions like universities. It forces us to ask how deep these biases run.
A really important story. Okay, for our final piece today, let's travel to Berlin and discuss the Humboldt Forum.
Right, the big museum complex that opened in 2021.
Yes, housed in that rebuilt Prussian palace. It's visually impressive, but also deeply controversial because it holds vast collections acquired during the colonial era.
Over 20,000 objects, many taken forcibly. Nataraja bronzes from India, Ming porcelain, thrones from Africa. It's a testament to colonial history, for sure.
So there was excitement about this new museum, but also immediate criticism about the origins of its collections. How is the forum responding to that?
Well, what's interesting is how it seems to be evolving. It's positioning itself now as more of a collaborative space. They're actively inviting international experts. And crucially, people from the source communities, the places where these objects originated, to work with the collections.
To do what? Research.
Yes, conduct provenance research tracing the history and ownership of objects, but also to initiate dialogue. Lars Christian Koch from the Berlin State Museums involved there said the aim is to surprise, provoke, and hopefully initiate dialogue and discourse.
Which gets right to that central critical question these collections raise. Whose art is it? Who do these artifacts truly belong to?
Exactly. And that's where Humboldt seems to be taking a different path compared to some other major Western museums, like maybe the British Museum or the Met, which have historically been quite defensive or dismissive about these questions.
Citing old, sometimes dubious claims of legal purchase or gifts from rulers under duress.
Right. Humboldt, on the other hand, seems to be leaning into acknowledging the difficult history. Their website and official statements explicitly say the objects witness to a long colonial and racist history.
That's quite direct acknowledgement.
It is. And they talk about being involved in programs to confront colonialism and its crimes. This is significant, especially given Germany's own history of colonial atrocities, particularly in Africa.
Is there a concrete example of this new approach in action?
The most prominent example is the Benin bronzes from Nigeria. Germany formally transferred ownership of hundreds of these bronzes back to Nigeria.
So they're not even in the Humboldt Forum anymore.
Only a few remain, and they're explicitly there on temporary loan from Nigeria. And importantly, a Nigerian educationalist is involved in shaping how they're displayed and interpreted. That's a major shift.
That really is a significant step. But restitution isn't always straightforward, is it? What about tracing ownership when borders have changed, or identifying the right community today?
It's definitely complex. And interestingly, the article notes that not all source communities even want the physical objects back.
Really? Like who?
The example given is from Papua New Guinea. They have a massive 52-foot double-hulled boat in the Forum's collection. But instead of asking for the boat back, the community apparently asked for help building a replica in Papua New Guinea.
So restitution can take different forms, maybe knowledge sharing, capacity building, not just returning the object itself.
Precisely. It requires dialogue and understanding what the source community actually values and needs today. The museum is also trying to make the collections relevant by hosting temporary exhibitions by living artists from these countries.
So what's the museum's role in the actual decision to return objects?
According to Koch, the final decisions on restitution are political ones, made by governments. The museum's role is to do the research, offer recommendations, and build relationships and networks with the source communities.
So it's a work in progress. Critics might say it's too little, too late, but it sounds like a significant attempt, at least in the German context, to grapple with a very difficult colonial legacy.
I think that's fair. It's seen as a starting point, an ongoing experiment. The Humboldt Forum, because of its very nature and contested origins, has become this focal point for debates about decolonization, restitution, and the future role of museums that hold these kinds of collections. It challenges not just Germany, but all of us to think about how we engage with cultural heritage and its often painful histories.
A crucial conversation indeed. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.